We're seeing that today. Truth is coming out, whether it be Noah's Ark or the Red Sea crossing.
This is unlike a lot of other archaeological sites. There's enough evidence to suggest that this is the real one.
We're seeing that today. Truth is coming out, whether it be Noah's Ark or the Red Sea crossing. This is unlike a lot of other archaeological sites. There's enough evidence to suggest that this is the real one. The sonar detected impossible shapes, too perfect to be natural. As deep-sea drones dove deeper, a chilling sight came into view. The distinct forms of chariot wheels buried in sand and coral. And we have some examples. Skeletons of humans, chariot wheels, and strange structures. This was the moment salvage divers knew they'd found something monumental in the Red Sea, looking for any possible evidence that might be able to draw the further notice of archaeologists. What many believe is the lost army of an Egyptian pharaoh, but with this discovery comes a warning so unsettling it leaves everyone on edge. What did they really uncover? The ghost in the deep. The story of the discovery of a chariot graveyard began over 40 years ago with a man named Ron Wyatt. A trained archaeologist by profession, he was a nurse, an ordinary man. But he was a man with an extraordinary passion. He believed the stories in the Bible were not just stories. He believed they were history, waiting for someone to find the proof. Driven by this powerful belief, Ron Wyatt spent his money and time traveling to the Middle East. He was looking for physical evidence of the great events described in the scriptures. In 1978, he arrived at the Gulf of Aqaba with a simple plan and a determined heart. He looked at the land and the water and became convinced that a specific beach called Nuweiba was the place where the Israelites had crossed. A likely beachhead where Israel was trapped on all sides. With little more than basic scuba gear and a camera, Ron Wyatt slipped beneath the waves. And what he claimed to find there would become the subject of debate for decades. He surfaced with incredible stories. He said he had seen the coral-encrusted remains of ancient chariots. He described wheels, some with 4 spokes, some with 6. He even claimed to have found a chariot wheel that looked different from the others. This one, he said, had a golden sheen, as if it was plated with gold, possibly belonging to a very important person. His claims did not stop there. He also spoke of finding human remains on the seabed, bones that looked like they had been shattered by a tremendous force. He imagined the scene of chaos and panic, an entire army drowning in a sudden rush of water. For Ron Wyatt, it was all there. The proof was on the seafloor, waiting for the world to see. But the world was not ready to listen. When he brought his findings to experts in universities, they were immediately dismissed. Mainstream archaeologists and historians ridiculed him. They said he was a fraud, a fool, or simply seeing what he wanted to see. They pointed out that coral can grow on anything, even modern junk. They asked for clear photographs for scientific analysis of the bones in the golden wheel. He could not provide the proof they demanded. The golden wheel, the most spectacular piece of evidence, never appeared in a museum or a laboratory. It remained a ghost, a story without a body.
So, if people are looking for chariot wheels, is there any crime searching for evidence like that? The official institutions denied him permits for a proper excavation. His findings were never published in a respected scientific journal. To the world of established science, Ron Wyatt was a fringe character, and his claims were nonsense. He became a laughingstock, a man who chased miracles and found only coral and confusion. Yet his story refused to die. Why? Because for many people, his passion was more compelling than the dry skepticism of the experts. He was the little guy, the outsider fighting against a system that did not want to hear his truth, the Solomon Pillars. So what convinced Ron Wyatt that the remote beach of Nuweiba is the true crossing point? The location itself offers the first clue. Situated almost halfway down the Gulf of Aqaba, it provides a direct path from one shore to the other. But the most intriguing pieces of evidence are not on the seabed, they are on the beach. On the Egyptian side, in the surf at Nuweiba, stands a solitary weathered pillar. This is no ordinary rock. It is a massive column of granite, a material that is completely foreign to this specific beach. Its presence is a profound anomaly. You do not find something like this just lying around. It stands alone, a silent sentinel eroded by wind and waves. According to the claims of Ron Wyatt, this was not the only pillar. He reported an identical one on the opposite shore in Saudi Arabia. That second pillar, he stated, was inscribed with ancient Hebrew writing that named King Solomon and described the Red Sea crossing. He allegedly turned it over to authorities, and it promptly disappeared, becoming yet another ghost in this story. The pillar that remains in Nuweiba shows heavy erosion, its surface scoured smooth by time. Any inscriptions it may have once held are likely long gone, leaving only modern graffiti behind. While it offers no conclusive proof, it poses a powerful question. What is a giant granite column doing here? It was not part of a known building. Its solitary, strategic placement on the shore suggests a purpose, a memorial, perhaps, marking an event of immense significance. This pillar does not prove a miracle happened, but it stands as a stubborn physical clue that something was remembered here, something important enough to mark for eternity. But just as the trail seems to end on the beach, a new clue began to rise from the depths, one no one saw coming. The sonar doesn't lie. On a calm day in the Gulf of Aqaba, a salvage ship cuts through the water. On board, a team of divers and technicians is conducting a standard geological survey. The mood is relaxed, professional. The high-tech sonar system pulses rhythmically, painting a digital picture of the seafloor thousands of feet below. It is a routine mapping exercise, nothing more. Then the first anomaly appears. A technician leans closer to the screen, adjusting the controls. The initial reading is dismissed as a ghost in the machine, a common glitch, but the signal persists. Strange geometric shapes begin to resolve from the murky data. They are too symmetrical, too uniform to be natural rock formations. Nature is messy and unpredictable, but what the sonar shows is disturbingly orderly. It looks planned, shaped by human hands. To confirm the unbelievable, the team deploys a deep-sea drone. The machine sinks into the abyss, its lights piercing the eternal darkness. The live feed is transmitted to the ship, where every crew member watches, transfixed.
The seabed comes into view, a landscape of sand and shadows, and then they see it. A distinct circular form half buried in the sediment. It is encrusted with centuries of coral growth, but its shape is undeniable. It is a wheel. You can see the central hub, the spokes radiating outward. The camera shifts, and another one appears, then another. And another. They are not isolated artifacts. They form a trail, a scattered path of ruins leading off into the gloom. The order is given to map the entire area. The sonar systems work tirelessly, scanning a massive section of the seabed. When the final image renders on the main screen, a stunned silence falls over the entire crew. The trail of debris does not span a few hundred meters. It is not a compact site. According to reports, the path of wreckage stretches across the ocean floor for an astonishing, almost incomprehensible 1.5 miles. To understand that scale, imagine 24 consecutive football fields, each one littered with the skeletal remains of ancient technology. This is the final resting place of a vast and powerful force.
This is the debris field of an entire army, a host of thousands, seemingly captured in a single catastrophic moment and laid to rest on the ocean floor. The initial excitement on the ship gives way to a heavier, more contemplative silence. Chariots, bones, and a path of retreat. So what is the actual evidence that makes people believe this is the lost army of the pharaoh? It is not just one piece of the puzzle. It is a collection of clues that, when put together, create a picture that is hard to ignore. Let's start with the wheels. The sonar and drone footage reportedly revealed not just random circles, but formations with clear, distinct spokes. Some of these coral-encrusted shapes have 4 spokes, others have 6, and some even appear to have 8. Now this is crucial. Historians know that Egyptian chariots of the suspected time period were not all the same. The standard military chariot often had 4 or 6 spokes, but the chariots used by royalty and high-ranking commanders sometimes had more. They were more elaborate. The variations said to have been found on the seabed match the variations we know existed in the Egyptian army. It is as if the sea floor holds a catalog of different chariot types, all in one place. But an army is more than its machines. It is made of people and animals. And here the story takes a darker turn. Divers and researchers report finding more than just metal and wood. They talk about bone shards scattered across the debris field. They describe finding pieces that look human, fragments of skulls, parts of legs and arms. Mixed in with these are other bones, larger and different in shape, identified as equine, from horses. These are not complete skeletons laid peacefully to rest. They are broken pieces, scattered as if by a tremendous force. They suggest a sudden, violent, and catastrophic end for a massive group of living beings. It paints a picture of chaos and terror, an entire military force trapped and overwhelmed. Now, all of this leads to a very practical question. How could over 1 million people, with their children and animals, possibly cross a body of water like the Red Sea? This is where the geography itself becomes a key piece of evidence. Look at a map of the area. The modern search focuses on a specific beach called Nua. The name Nua itself is short for Nuea el Musana, which some translate as the waters of Moses opened.
But the real clue is underwater. The beach at Nuea drops gently into the sea, leading to a long submerged ridge. This underwater path is like a hidden land bridge. It is much shallower than the water on either side. On the left and the right of this ridge, the seafloor plunges down into extreme depths like underwater canyons. But this one path remains relatively flat and wide. It stretches all the way to the opposite shore in Saudi Arabia. It is the only place for miles where such a crossing seems geographically possible. It is a natural pathway across the sea. Now imagine the scene. On one side, you have a trapped population backed against the water. On the other, the full might of Egypt's army charging down the coast. The only escape is straight ahead onto this underwater land bridge. The story says a strong east wind pushed the waters back. If the water on this ridge was driven back, it would create a wall of water on both sides, held back by the deep trenches with a dry path in the middle. It fits the description perfectly. So when you look at all this evidence together, it starts to form a story. You have the chariot wheels of the correct types in a massive debris field. You have the human and horse bones suggesting a sudden drowning. And you have the perfect geographical location that makes the entire event seem possible. This is no longer just a story in a book. It becomes a real event that happened in a real place. You can almost hear the noise, the shouting of soldiers, the whinnying of horses, the roar of the wind in the water. It is a narrative written not on paper, but on the seabed, a tragic record of an army that pursued too far and met a fate that would be remembered for thousands of years. The evidence is there, waiting to be understood, a discovery unraveling. The discovery of this Chariot graveyard is facing a race against time, and it is a race that might already be lost. The first and most pressing issue is sheer fragility. The objects on the seafloor are not sturdy relics waiting to be dusted off and displayed. They have been under immense pressure, battered by currents, and eaten away by salt for centuries. The coral that forms their recognizable shape is both a preserver and a destroyer. These formations are incredibly delicate. To touch one is to risk turning it into a pile of dust and sand. They are like ancient paper, disintegrating the moment it is handled. This means the most important pieces of evidence may never be recovered intact. They are vanishing before we can even properly study them, leaving us with only photographs and speculation. Making this situation worse is the problem of contamination. This location has been known for decades, a magnet for explorers, treasure hunters, and believers. The seabed has been disturbed by countless unregulated dives. Well-meaning people may have moved objects, accidentally broken fragile structures, or even left modern debris behind. This creates a nightmare for any scientist trying to understand the site. How can they be sure a piece of metal is ancient if it could have been dropped there 10 years ago? The original scene has been trampled. Complicating everything is an alleged web of silence and politics. A verified discovery of this nature would rewrite history books and shake religious foundations across the world. Because of this, some believe there is no real desire among powerful institutions to find a definitive answer. There are whispers of governments quietly blocking proper excavation permits, perhaps to avoid the immense global controversy that would follow. The site exists in a strange limbo, not officially protected as a genuine archaeological treasure, but also not openly and seriously investigated by mainstream science. This vacuum fuels endless rumors and ensures that no clear, trusted authority can take charge to find the truth. All of this leads to a profound and frustrating irony. The very proof that so many people have searched for over so many years is now completely unobtainable.
The evidence is too fragile to recover, too contaminated to trust, and too politically charged to approach properly. The hunt for answers has in many ways destroyed the possibility of ever finding them. The truth is not being hidden, it is simply crumbling away, leaving us with a compelling story that may forever remain just beyond our grasp. A ghost at the bottom of the sea. The scientific breakdown. The story is compelling, and the images feel convincing. But before accepting any conclusion, the scientific questions must be addressed. Archaeologists, geologists, and marine scientists who have investigated these claims all point to the same problems. These issues do not weaken the story slightly, they dismantle it completely. The first major claim involves the so-called chariot wheels preserved by coral. The explanation sounds impressive until you understand how coral behaves. Coral is not selective. It attaches to any hard surface available, including modern debris, rocks, dropped tools, anchors, and machinery. It creates shapes based on water flow, mineral content, and the surface it grows on. Circular coral formations with spoke-like patterns occur naturally, even on objects that never resembled wheels. Unless the underlying object is recovered and analyzed, a coral shape alone cannot identify anything. What looks like a wheel can easily be a rock or discarded modern metal. Bones present an even bigger problem. The Red Sea is one of the harshest environments for bone preservation. Saltwater, bacteria, and marine scavengers break down organic material rapidly. In open water, unprotected bones cannot survive more than a few centuries. For bones to last thousands of years, they must be buried in deep, oxygen-free sediment.
The idea that human and horse bones are lying exposed on the seabed after 3,000 years contradicts everything known about marine taphonomy. No verifiable scientific examination of these supposed bones has ever been performed, meaning the claims remain unproven stories rather than evidence. The famous golden chariot wheel raises the largest red flag of all. There is no physical sample, no verified photograph, no museum record, and no official documentation of its recovery. In science and archaeology, a claim without evidence is not considered data. It is considered a legend. The golden wheel fits that description exactly. The geography itself also contradicts the narrative. The idea of a land bridge at Nuea Beach sounds reasonable until examined with actual depth readings. The Gulf of Aqaba is a deep marine trench. Even the shallowest rise near Nuea drops rapidly to hundreds of feet of water. The slopes on either side fall to depths of more than 5,000 feet. This is not walkable terrain, and no known wind force could expose a dry pathway across it. Oceanographers agree that the physics simply do not support the proposed crossing. When these issues are combined, the conclusion becomes clear. The story is captivating, but none of the evidence holds up under scientific examination. The coral shapes, the unverified bones, the missing golden wheel, and the actual geography all point to the same result. The legend remains powerful, but the science does not support it. Why we want to believe. If the scientific evidence is so weak, why does this story refuse to die? Why do people keep searching the waters? And why do blurry images from the deep keep pulling at us? The answer has little to do with archaeology and everything to do with a deep human need.
The desire to touch a miracle. Stories of faith are woven into cultures everywhere. They help form identity and meaning for billions. Yet those stories describe events from long ago, events most of us can never see. We are asked to accept them on trust. So the idea of finding physical proof, one object that says this happened, becomes irresistible. To hold a chariot wheel from the seabed would feel like reaching back and touching a moment when the world changed. That urge to turn faith into fact is powerful and painfully human. This longing produces a familiar struggle, the lone believer against the institutional expert. On one side are figures like Ron Wyatt and modern diver, driven, hopeful individuals who risk time and money to follow a lead. On the other stand universities, governments, and scientific bodies, large, methodical institutions quick to say no. It is a classic tale of heart versus head, where the outsider becomes a hero in our imagination. We love to root for the underdog who might prove the establishment wrong. Part of the legend's force is how neatly the pieces line up. First, an ancient sacred text tells of an extraordinary event. Second, there is a real place that looks like the story's setting. Third, sonar returns odd shapes on the seafloor that could be artifacts. Finally, official science says the whole idea is unlikely. Put together, those elements create a gripping mystery. Remove any single piece, and the story would collapse. Without the text, it is just stones. Without the shapes, it is only faith. Without the doubt, it loses its spark. Uncertainty is essential to the tale. Living between yes and no lets imagination run wild. We want the world to be richer, more magical, more full of wonder. The thought that a divine event might have left traces beneath the waves makes history feel larger and our place in it more meaningful. That hope survives facts, so the sea keeps its secret. Sonar echoes and coral-encrusted shapes may never give a final answer. The place becomes less an archaeological site and more a mirror reflecting who we are. Some see proof of the divine, others see natural rock. Maybe the real discovery is not chariots or bones, but this, our need to find meaning, to witness the extraordinary, and to touch the stories we inherit.
The ocean holds its silence, and the trail, whether real or imagined, remains one of the most compelling mysteries. And so, we keep looking, hopeful that the deep will yield a truth we can